Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I want to share with you guys some of my favorite eyeshadow palettes of all time. I actually wanted to film this video for a while now because of course I love eyeshadow palettes, and I mean, who doesn't? And also because I think eyeshadow palettes are such great gift ideas all year long. And I hope this is something you're interested in, and please keep on watching. Okay, you guys, so I'm gonna go in a little bit of an order just because of course I'm gonna save my favorite one for last, right? But all of these eyeshadow palettes, honestly, I love them. I've used them so many times and they're stable in my collection. I actually counted my eyeshadow palettes for this video, and it turns out that I have over 50 eyeshadow palettes, which is way too much. But you know, makeup is my passion, and that's why I have way too much. But also, this is why I can tell you guys what you should have and what you shouldn't have, right? So without further ado, let's get started. So I'm gonna go brand by brand and mention a few palettes because honestly I have multiple of my favorite brands, so I think it's only fair that I mention a few of them. And also I've learned that just because you love a certain palette by a certain brand doesn't mean you're gonna like all of them. I've purchased palettes by a certain brand that I love, and I've continued to buy their palettes just because I thought the formula was going to be the same, and it isn't always. So just keep that in mind. These are brands that I like, and these are particular palettes that I like. It doesn't necessarily mean that I like every palette by every brand. So the first brand and the first eyeshadow palettes I wanted to shout out in this video are by NYX. I love NYX. I have so much NYX makeup, honestly, and it's drugstore makeup, which means that it's really affordable. This palette is actually what I'm wearing on my eyes today, and I love this palette. This is relatively new for me. This is an older palette that I have used so much. Both of these honestly are so great, and I love them both. Let me first show you guys what this looks like. So the first one is the NYX Ultimate Shadow Palette. This one is called Warm Neutrals, and let me show you what it looks like because it's so beautiful. I mean, you're gonna see the same colors probably over and over again because I tend to like the same shadows, but that's how we are, right? So this is what the palette looks like, and it's so gorgeous. I love all of these shades so much. The second palette, like I mentioned, is called Away We Glow, also of course by NYX, and I just got this palette and I used it twice already. This is what this palette looks like. And also I love the fact that they're drugstore. It's so nice to have a drugstore alternative. You don't always want to go spend $50, $60, $100 or $200 on an eyeshadow palette, right? I'm not sure that they actually carry them in the drugstore. I know that I ordered both of these online, but they are still available, and I love them so much, and I highly recommend them. Also, one thing that I love about drugstore is, of course, sometimes the packaging is a little bit cheaper, and it is plastic, which I love to travel with, so I love that. Because sometimes with the pricier palettes, they do put a lot of money into the packaging, and sometimes the packaging is heavier, so I don't always like to travel with higher end palettes. And also because they're a little bit cheaper, you're not so worried about them breaking when you travel with them. So I love it for that reason as well. But honestly, NYX eyeshadow palettes are some of my favorite drugstore palettes. I love them so much, and I highly recommend them both. So the next brand that I wanted to talk about is not a drugstore brand, but it is a drugstore price, and that's why I wanted to mention it as well. So the next shadows that I wanted to mention are by the brand COLOURPOP. It is such a great brand. I love them so much. Their individual Super Shock shadows, I believe, are $5 each, $5 or $6 each, and they do carry them at certain Sephora's, which I love. This palette I actually bought in Sephora when they first launched. This consists of 4 individual shadows. These are the Super Shock shadows, and they are so amazing. Like, honestly, these shadows I almost always use at the end of my eyeshadow application. I love to just use them as a top coat or all over the lid. They are so amazing. I always travel. I always have one of these little guys with me in my bag just to go over my eyeshadow with. They're so amazing, and I love them all. And their colors, I mean, the colors are so beautiful. So this is what they look like. Like I said, they're all individual shadows, and they're so amazing. The one that I've used the most, honestly, in this palette is Birthday Girl, and that's because I love to go over it, like right here on the lid. I love to go over it because it gives you such a nice little sparkle, and it's so beautiful. I don't know if it picks up on camera, but honestly, guys, all of these individual shadows are so good. Like I said, you can buy them as a set and you can buy them individually, and they're all so good. I know that COLOURPOP are known for their Super Shock shadows. Honestly, I think that's what put them really on the map, and especially for the price point, $5 or $6, you can't beat that. They are so amazing. Like I said, they sell them in this palette right here, and they also are sold individually, and I highly highly recommend their Super Shock shadows. Also, I want to mention that COLOURPOP do sell these little mini palettes as well, which are great for traveling. Their palettes, again, are super affordable. This is just one that I brought out just to show you guys because they have a bunch of these on the website. This particular one right here consists of only shimmers and is so gorgeous. This is called their Semi and Precious Shadow Palette, and this is what that palette looks like. And I brought this out just to show you guys that they also sell regular eyeshadow palettes that are super affordable, and they're also great. They're mattes, they're shimmers, but of course my favorite, I do have to say, are their Super Shock shadows. And moving on to the third brand that I wanted to talk about, I definitely want to talk about Huda Beauty as well, because she makes some of the most amazing eyeshadow palettes. Not just eyeshadow palettes, her eyelashes and a bunch of other things, but for today's video we talk about her eyeshadows. But I do have to say that there are palettes of hers that I'm not crazy about. These two palettes that I'm going to mention, I love those palettes, but there are palettes of hers that I'm not crazy about, honestly. I don't think necessarily they're always consistent, and there actually are a few shadows in this palette in particular that don't work for me. I don't think that they work at all. So I gotta say that there are a few misses in the palette, but honestly the pigmentation and blendability on these palettes are awesome. So the first one that I wanted to mention, let's go in with this one. That's the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette, and I've actually filmed a video using this palette. Let me just show you guys up close what it looks like. I mean, first of all, you guys can tell the packaging is just so beautiful. It has that iridescent feel to it. It does come with a pretty big mirror, which is always nice for when you travel. But let me just show you guys what this baby looks like. And these are the shadows right here. I mean, come on, how beautiful is this palette? If you're like me, then right away your eye goes to this shade right here, and that's the one I wanted to mention, that this is the shade Cosmo, and I don't understand this color. I think she said to use it with your finger. I tried to use it with a dry brush, with a wet brush, with my finger, and it doesn't work for me at all. It just falls off. It's just a bunch of glitters. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I bought this palette, because I was so drawn to this color, and that's the color that I don't use at all. That being said, all of the other colors are so beautiful, and it's such a great palette. You can do so many looks with this palette, and I honestly think that this palette is such a great gift idea, especially for girls that love makeup. They're gonna love this palette. Now, the second palette by Huda that I wanted to mention is actually my favorite one, and it's this mini palette. She came out with a bunch of these little mini palettes, and I have a few of them. This one is my favorite, honestly, and I actually filmed a video using this palette as well. This is so amazing. I mean, First of all, it's like $27, and it actually comes with a little mirror as well, which is so cute. And let me just show you guys the colors. I know you're gonna say that the colors are very repetitive, and they are. But that's because I obviously love these type of colors. But this one in particular, I love this little mini palette so much. I mean, first of all, it's so cute, and I love traveling with this one because I feel with this eyeshadow palette right here, you have everything you need in this little tiny package. I mean, come on, how nice is that? Like, you don't want to travel with one of those big bulky palettes. Nobody wants to do that. So I think that this is such a great option, and I think it's such a cute little gift idea, and it's not that expensive, and you get everything you need in here. So I think even if you're on a budget, even if you can't afford the bigger palettes, then this is the way to go for sure. And I actually prefer the mini palettes over her bigger palettes, just being honest, but I think these are so great, and I highly recommend these little mini palettes. Now moving on to a brand that I love so much, and this is honestly the brand that I started buying the most when I first started really getting into makeup, so it does hold a special place in my heart. And the brand that I'm referring to, of course, is Morphe. I love Morphe. I think they're so amazing. Their eyeshadow are some of the best eyeshadow palettes, honestly, that I own, and they're so affordable, so it doesn't get better than that. The fact that you can get an awesome palette for an awesome price. And the first palette I want to talk about is this baby right here. This is such an amazing palette, and this is the first palette that I bought when I started getting really into makeup. This palette was so popular, and you couldn't get it anywhere. It was sold out everywhere. And I was waiting for this palette to launch, and I was at work, so I had my girlfriend sit and wait and actually purchase this palette for me. And of course, I'm talking about the Morphe 35O palette. It is such a beautiful palette, and there you go. You can tell that this palette has been loved. I have used this so many times, and I'm still using it to this day. I love this palette so much. It is everything that you could want. Honestly, if I only had this palette for the rest of my life, I would be okay. But you guys know me, of course I have to have every palette out there, but I'm also just ridiculous. But I do have to mention that this is one of my favorite palettes of all time, and it does hold a special place in my heart, like I said, because it is the first palette that I purchased when I first started getting really into makeup. So I honestly love this palette so much, and I highly recommend this palette for anybody starting out, and for people that are interested in learning about makeup, starting standing out. This palette is so great for that because you get everything you need and more. There are shadows in here that I haven't even touched, and it comes with 35 shadows for I believe $25. I mean, you can't beat that. You have everything you want in this palette. Quickly, I wanted to mention a few other palettes by Morphe that I love so much because I think they're great for gift ideas as well. I love the Jaclyn Hill palette. I love Jaclyn Hill. She's one of the first beauty gurus that I started watching on YouTube, and I love her so much. And this is the palette she created with Morphe. The formula on this shadow is actually a little bit different than the other Morphe shadows, and I love them both equally as much. I just wanted to mention that really quickly. This palette is so amazing. The color scheme in this palette is amazing. Jaclyn Hill is amazing. So I think this is an awesome gift idea for anybody who's crazy about makeup. Also by Morphe, I wanted to mention this big boy right here because they came out with this over the holidays and I love this so much. And every time I pull out my drawer and I see this palette, I'm like, oh my god, I forgot about this palette. I have to use this more. But honestly, how much can I use one palette? I have so many and I gotta try out so many. But this one, oh my god, look at this. I mean, first of all, let me just count all the shadows in here. I still count in Danish. 36 smaller. Okay. 36 smaller eyeshadows and then the 7 in the middle. Look at this baby right here. I mean, stop, right? Stop. And these you can also use to contour. You can use these shades to contour. I believe this palette was $35, something like that. It was under $40. And look how many eyeshadows you get. They are so beautiful, so vibrant. You get every color in this eyeshadow palette right here. You have your plums over here. You have your blues, your cooler tone, your warm shades. You have everything you could want in this palette. And even these you can use for your face as well. So I highly, highly, highly recommend this palette as well. And this palette is called the Dare to Create 39A palette. And again, I highly recommend this for anybody who loves makeup. It's such a great palette. Okay, you guys, and coming to an end, the last brand I wanted to talk about is also my favorite eyeshadow palette. And it is the Anastasia eyeshadow palettes, the Modern Renaissance and also the Soft Glam. I honestly love these two equally as much and they are very similar. Let me just show you really quick. This is the first one I bought. This is the Modern Renaissance. And look how beautiful that is. And they also come with an awesome eyeshadow brush that I use all the time, which is another reason why I love this palette so much. So that was the Modern Renaissance, and then this is the Soft Glam, which is a little bit newer. I haven't used it as much yet, and this is what it looks like, equally as beautiful. They are honestly very similar, and they were talking about that online, of course, comparing them. They are similar. The Soft Glam, of course, just has a little bit more of a softer feel to it. The Modern Renaissance is definitely something that I've been using more. Like I said in the beginning, these are my favorite eyeshadow palettes and I highly, highly recommend them. I think first of all, the pigmentation in these palettes are so amazing. They come with the awesome brush, like I mentioned. They come with a mirror and they're not too big, they're not too small. I mean, honestly, these are also great for traveling and that's another reason why I love this palette so much. Compared to the Morphe ones, they're just way too big to travel with. These are my favorite eyeshadow palettes, honestly, but they did come out with one in between called the Subculture palette that I played around with a little bit. I get to try it out and there was so many negative reviews online, honestly, and I tried it for myself. I never bought it, but I tried it and I had to agree with it. I didn't like it at all. These also have fallout. That's one negative thing if you want about these. I don't mind it so much, but they do have a little bit of fallout. The Subculture palette had so much fallout. I mean, it was all over my face. The shadows were a little bit darker and it just made a mess. So I didn't like the Subculture palette and I didn't buy it. But these two babies right here, they are so beautiful and so amazing. And you can do so many looks with this palette. These are the two eyeshadow palettes that I grab for every time I just need to get out the door and do my signature look. I mean, we all have a signature look, right? Something that we're used to, that we know how the outcome is going to be. We don't want to try anything new, and these are my palettes that I always go to. I love these palettes so much, and I honestly can't decide which one I love more because they are very similar. This is a little bit softer. This has all the plum tones that I love so much, so honestly you can't go wrong with either one of them. And I'm sure every daughter, every friend, every girlfriend, every wife, any woman that gets this palette is going to be so happy with it. I love these two palettes so much, and I can't say enough good things about these palettes other than that you need this palette in your collection. If you're a makeup lover, you must have this palette, at least one of them. You don't have to have both of them. I know I'm excessive, I have everything, but you need one of these in your collection if you're a makeup lover for sure. So yeah, you guys, I know that was a lot, but honestly, these are some of my favorite eyeshadow palettes of all time. I hope this video was helpful for you guys, and I hope I gave you a few good gift ideas. If you like this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Other than that, have a great day or a night wherever you guys are, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!